Good morning. Curtis and Lisa are in San Angelo this morning. They celebrated their daughter Katie's wedding last night, and Katie and Rich are on their way for their honeymoon for this weekend, so Curtis and Lisa will be spending time with their grandkids. And I know that they would appreciate your prayers because the way Curtis talked, they were going to have their hands full, I think. So, if you're visiting with us this morning, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Scott Wallace. I'm the youth minister here at North Street, and we are glad that you chose to worship with us this morning. This weekend, Friday night and all day yesterday, there was a group of us in the youth group, about 16 teens. We traveled up to Richardson, Texas for a flag football tournament that has been moved from here in Nacogdoches up to Richardson. With very little sleep Friday night and a full day of about 20-mile-an-hour wind and cool weather, we were active and busy all day yesterday. And I'm really proud to say that our guys that we took along, we played in the championship game yesterday. They did fantastic. Now, the rest of the story, when we went and participated in this event last year, we didn't win a ball game. We've made great strides. But what I was particularly proud of, I had several youth ministers and several parents that came up to me during the day, and they commented about our group. They said that, wow, these guys really act like they're having fun. They just really enjoy each other's company, which is sort of a testament to how tight a group that we have. And I was really proud. One of our young men, William Haynes, he didn't win the prize, but they have a Heart of Christ award, and different parents and different coaches look out throughout the day, and that kid wins that award who shows in a difficult, playing football is hard, but William's name was brought up several times as, I think William's going to win that. I think, I'm so caught up in the games and the activities go, oh yeah, that's great. And then at the end of the day, we all kind of thought William had a shot at it. There was another young man that won that award, but William really stood out, and I was very proud of his actions. It has become our custom here that at the end of the lesson, a couple elders and their wives will step out during our last song, and they want you to know if you have any concerns or stuff going on in your life, they're there to pray with you. They would like you to share with them, and then they'd like to spend some time with you and pray with you. So please take advantage of that. Also, if you have been studying and you feel the need to be baptized this morning, we would invite you to come down following the sermon, and we would like to help you with that as well. Let's begin with a prayer. Father, we do thank you for the unique opportunity that we have to talk to you. We thank you for your word, for your strength, and for your blessing. Lord, open our eyes this morning and our hearts, that as we think together, we may grow closer to you. We ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. I really appreciate the guys that manage and lead the kids' moment. Have you ever considered the risk they're taking? I mean, you got all these kids that are up here from pretty young to fourth, fifth graders, I think. And these guys are willing to put a microphone in front of these kids. And man, there's no telling what they might say or what they might do. And have you ever considered, or as you watch, let me back up, you may not have noticed that every now and then Will or Greg or Sean, they have a pretty good lesson. And it's easy to become distracted from the lesson that they have to offer. And although I sit up here at the front, I see some of you guys, and you're craning your necks to see which one of these guys are going to do something spectacular. You can't help. All right, I know somebody's going to do it this morning. And Kat Darden and I made eye contact, and she was thinking, somebody get up there and get my child. But they're up here And does it not take you back just a little bit at when maybe we're at that age and they're so carefree, they don't have responsibilities, they're not burdened with the chaos of life. They have 300-ish people with their eyes on them. They're not thinking, well, I hope Mom fixed my hair just right. And they're not thinking about all these people watching me. They're thinking, ooh, shiny, you know. And they're so much in their own little world. And don't we kind of wish that we could go back? So, I really appreciate you guys for what you do. As we get older, life sort of happens. And we get responsibilities, challenges, disruptions in life where things happen. And it starts to get difficult. We were in Wednesday night class the other night, and the discussion was, we were talking about how we go from these young ones to older and how life becomes more challenging. And one of the 15-year-olds in class made the comment, yeah, then you turn 15 and life hits you right in the face. I was like, you're 15. But as you know, as we get older, life gets much more difficult. Our lives become chaotic. And these moments of peace, or these moments of contentment, just become slivers. They just become these little pieces of life that are far and few between. And for the most part, we've adjusted our life to the chaos. We've adjusted our life to all the disruptions, to all the challenges. And then whenever we do experience that moment of peace, it's almost as if, okay, when's the next fire coming that I need to put out? When's the next moment of chaos that I need to manage in my life? I would like to introduce to the stage, we have a short illustration. I've asked a few of the teens to help out this morning, and I want you to watch, just as an example of what life turns into. About a hand for Kennedy and Jeannie Mae. You know, isn't that what it's like, though? And if you haven't experienced that, I would be willing to bet you've seen it. And so, you know, life, we just look for a moment of peace. And then when it comes, we have trouble taking advantage of it. This morning, we're going to continue our Jesus story, and our focus is going to come from the Philippian letter. There's a lot of encouraging verses. There's a lot of encouraging things that the Apostle Paul has to say about the Philippian letter. For example, it was read to us this morning by Kevin, rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. And then there's the ever popular Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. As was mentioned earlier, our lives are hectic, is sometimes so hectic that whenever we focus on these verses, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I've heard that verse used, and I'm not sure that sometimes whenever we use that verse, that if we're not quoting it or reading it or praying that verse, are we using it from the standpoint for my personal gain? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me so that I can get that job promotion. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me so I can get that bonus. Or as I prepare for a test, or if I'm looking to date a certain person or to maybe fit into a certain group, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me so that I can fit into this group. Now then, I wonder, are we looking at that through a certain lens? And if we consider where Paul was whenever he wrote the letter to the Philippians, are we looking at it through the same lens as to what Paul was looking at it? When he says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, you have to understand that Paul is in a prison. Granted, he's in a home that's being rented out, but he's under house arrest, and he is very limited as to what he can do. When he writes the words, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, what is it that he wants to do? He can endure, and he writes a lot of letters, or he writes some letters while he's in prison. He can try to be a little bit more patient and not complain too much. But what is it that Paul can do? I wonder if Paul is looking at the weight of these words through a different lens sometimes than what we might. If we turn back a few chapters and we look at Philippians chapter 1, starting in verse 12, it says, Now I want you to know, brothers and sisters, I'm reading the New International Version. Now I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that what has happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel. As a result, it has become clear throughout the whole palace guard and to everyone else that I am in chains for Christ. And because of my chains, most of the brothers and sisters have become confident in the Lord, and all the more to proclaim the gospel without, and dare all the more to proclaim the gospel without fear. So I want to set the stage here. Paul is in prison, and he's in chains. Whenever a prisoner is being held in a Roman prison, or even under house arrest, the Romans did not see it as their responsibility to take care of the prisoner. So food, fresh water, clean clothes, any kind of visitors, that's on them. The Romans didn't do it the way we do it today to make sure that they get 3 squares a day, to make sure that, okay, we got to take care of them this way. It's on them. Now, Paul is under house arrest, and whenever it says that he is in chains, I want to make this point. He's not chained to something stationary that's in the house. He is probably chained, if you read the last 3 chapters of Acts, Paul is probably chained to a Praetorian guard, or to a Praetorian soldier, hand to hand. Now, if he's chained to a Praetorian, I want to sort of describe to you what a Praetorian soldier. They had a different set of requirements. They were held to a little bit higher level. A Praetorian soldier is held to a higher level than a Roman soldier. First of all, he's handpicked. He's handpicked by generals, or he's handpicked by some of the palace leaders, or he's handpicked by Caesar himself. A Praetorian soldier is paid quite a bit more than a normal Roman soldier. He is allowed to marry. He is allowed to have kids. He is allowed to retire after approximately 16 years of service, whereas a Roman soldier is allowed to retire after 25 years. And then up on that retirement, a Praetorian soldier is usually granted a little bit more opportunities in land grants, or he's invited into the political arena. So he had a future ahead of him even after that. Now then, he had certain weapons, and he was taught how to use these weapons that most Roman soldiers didn't have. However, a Praetorian soldier is held to a higher standard. More is expected of him. So if you imagine it from the standpoint that Paul is attached to a Roman soldier hand to hand all the time, I want you to think you are somebody else's burden. Food, water, clean clothes, visits, updates on what is going on in the churches that you're a part, that you help build, or updates about your close friends, that's up to somebody else to bring you all the information. So how would you, in our lives of chaos, how would you manage that? How would you handle that? Well, I have another illustration that I'd like to show you. I have a couple that are going to come out. First, we're going to look at it, the perspective of how I might manage being attached to a Praetorian soldier. And we're just going to look at a couple different perspectives. I'd like to introduce to you Alex Maximus Justus. So, Alex is the Praetorian soldier that just shows up, and I am handcuffed to him all the time. Okay? I'm looking at it through my perspective of being frustrated about the fact of my situation. So, Alex, did you bring me anything to eat?
No. I got this cabbage soup that somebody brought. Can't stand it. It's terrible. Could we at least go for a walk to the market and I get something good to eat? No. Well, what am I supposed to do? Just sit here all the time and just do nothing? That's all. That's all you got for me. This is terrible. Frustrated with this.
So that might be how we look at our situation. Now then, let me introduce to you our next Praetorian soldier, Hannah Minimus Spake.
Hey, Hannah. How's the family?
Oh, they're good.
Everyone doing okay? Great, great. I've got some food back here that some people brought. It's good. There's some cabbage soup that's out of this world.
Yeah, I'm good.
Well, maybe we can have a chance to sit and visit.
Yeah, actually, if you're hungry, my buddy Maximus bought some food.
Oh, great. We can sit down and we can enjoy a meal together here in just a little bit.
What was that story you were talking about? Something about the gospel and Jesus? Said something about the road to Damascus.
Yes, on the road to Damascus. That's the first time that I met our Lord Jesus. Yeah, let me tell you all about it.
How about a round of applause for Hannah and Alex? All right. I get it. That's a silly illustration, and we're using them as an example. However, I want you to just consider for a second, if Paul says, and I want you to go back, and Paul is under these circumstances, and this is what he's dealing with. I want to read that verse to you again. Philippians chapter 1, starting in verse 12 through 14. This time I want to read it from the Message version. I want to report to you, friends, that my imprisonment here has had the opposite of its intended effect. Instead of being squelched, the message has actually prospered. All the soldiers here and everyone else too has found out that I'm in jail because of this Messiah. That piqued their curiosity, and now they've learned all about him. Not only that, but most of the followers of Jesus here have become far more sure of themselves in the faith than ever before, speaking out fearlessly about God, about the Messiah. Now I want you to consider how we get caught up in our lives, how the chaos dominates. Paul had achieved something. He found this peace, he found this ability to be able to do all things through Christ who strengthens him. Even while he's in prison, attached to a Praetorian guard, he's able to convince the palace guard that Jesus is real. He's able to share the gospel with them. And if you read the last verse in the letter to the Philippians, the Praetorian guard wants to be, or the soldiers that have been converted want to be recognized at the church in Philippi that, hey, we're a part of you. We've become Christians and we want to be recognized by you in Philippi that we're Christians too. How does Paul do that? How is he able to accomplish that? He had to be in a place that he's so sure of who his Christ is, he's sold out. And he's living in this world of peace. In the midst of a storm, he's able to do it. It's confession time, and I have to tell you that as the guy that's bringing you this lesson, I don't know how to do it. I've read the Bible. I've studied the Gospels. I don't know how to do it. I mean, I understand what the words say, but I'm not sure that I know how to do it. What I wonder is if at some point we have to come to the realization that I'm not living in a world of peace that Jesus wants for me. I'm not living in a world of peace that God has expected and set up for me. We have to come to that realization, and then I wonder if we have to come to a determination, that's how I'm going to live. That's the life that I want. I can't tell you from experience because I think my life is dominated by chaos. We were at Winterfest about 3 weeks ago. I took the youth group, and there was at Winterfest, it's held in Arlington, Texas. It's in the Arlington Convention Center. It's about 4,000-ish teenagers. It's big. And we praise and worship together. There's speakers that come from all over. And these guys do an excellent job of presenting the Word to teenagers in a way that it's powerful, and they get it. So we're there Saturday night, and Jeff Walling is up there, and he introduces to the stage a lady by the name of Nika Maples. Nika Maples shared her story with us, and once she was done, she just absolutely stole the show. Whenever she was introduced to the stage, she came walking out, and she had a cane, and I can't describe it, I can't show you, but as she walked, it looked like her hips were disjointed. They weren't connected. And it looked, just a very short walk, it looked extremely painful just to watch her walk to the stool which she sat. And after I saw her walk, I thought, oh, there's no way she can sit on that stool. So she gets out and she shares her story. I'm going to just hit some of the highlights of Nika Maples' story. When she was 12 years old, she was diagnosed with systemic lupus, which means that she had extreme arthritis in all of her joints. Her kidneys were going to be seriously affected. Her internal organs were at risk, and she was extremely sensitive to the sun. This is a girl from Texas. At the age of 17, her senior year of high school, she's diagnosed with cancer, her senior year, and so she's having to take chemotherapy every month for 2 years. She didn't get to experience any of the opportunities that most seniors get to experience, particularly in the spring. She missed it. And since it was 2 years, it went into the years of when she begins college. At 20 years old, on March the 2nd, 1994, she's in college, and she began to experience these episodes of these headaches. The way she described it, she said it felt like an ice pick right behind her left ear. And she said it was just excruciating, but the doctors couldn't diagnose it, and there wasn't really a way to stop it. And she was experiencing temporary blindness. At times, she would just go blind. On March 2nd, 1994, in her dorm room, she fell face first, and she had a massive brainstem stroke. She became quadriplegic. She couldn't move anything. She couldn't even blink. She couldn't swallow. She couldn't use her tongue. She could just lay there. Now, as she's experiencing this, she wakes up in a hospital bed as a quadriplegic, and the doctors are in the room, and they're talking to her mother, and the doctors tell her mother and her family, said, we would be shocked if she lives for 48 hours. Prepare yourselves. She's probably not going to make it more than 48 hours. Well, here's the interesting part. She could hear. And so she hears, if you can imagine, she hears this. So she's laying there, and she prays. And she expects to die within 48 hours. So she continues to live. After 48 hours, she's still living. And so the doctors meet she still can't move. The doctors meet in her room, and they're talking to the parents again, and they said, now look, for this to work, you guys are going to have to put her into some kind of long-term care facility, because the amount of care and work that Nika is going to need, she's never going to come out of this. And so her mother simply asked the question, so how many patients that have ever had a stroke like this have ever lived, or have come out of it, have recovered? And the doctor avoided the question. He wouldn't answer it. And so the mother said, I asked the question again. How many patients have ever had a stroke like this and have ever come out of it? And the doctor said, 1. So the mom said, well, that's all we need. That gives us hope. We're going to take care of our daughter. So Nika, the following year, walked back into her college, and she graduated. She graduated from Texas Wesleyan University, and then in 2007, Nika was nominated and won Teacher of the Year in the state of Texas for the secondary education. Nika now, she travels across the country, and she shares the gospel wherever she goes. And this woman has come so far. She's written 3 different books. She's come so far. And she has this story. It's motivating. And to listen to the story, it's just very powerful. But whenever we saw her, and the teens and the parents that were there, and I talked about it that night, when you saw her on stage and she tells that story, she had something. Yeah, it was a powerful story. Yeah, it was motivational. Yeah, it was just touched your heart. But she had something. And what you saw was you saw this person that was living Jesus. She radiated Christ. Every now and then we get to experience that. We get to see that. Paul had it. We get to read about it from Paul, but every now and then in your life, and you may be that person, but every now and then you get to experience that person, or you get to see them living Jesus. And that, when you see that, that makes us realize, you know what? If they can do it, I can do it. We have to come to the realization that maybe we're not living that life of peace that we're called to. And then we have to get that determination that, you know what? I'm determined to live it out. I will be Jesus. And I'm going to enjoy the peace that He has to offer me. If you have any need this morning, anything at all, please come forward as we stand and sing.